this, it's my understanding that this is more an act of, that this increase, this difference is more an act of revenue, and there's a small percentage of it that's expense savings, but it's more an increase in revenue.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Real
So
quick.
let's just, I mean, I just want to be clear that we didn't do anything drastic to eliminate expenses to try and make these numbers different. We were basically operating, we did some things from a headcount perspective and from a timing perspective, but for the most part, this is all revenue.
And we discussed that during the
Yes.
April
Okay.
session.
Laura, I want to make sure, you've got a copy of this with you at the podium?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Because I only saw the councilman hand it out to the people in the desk.
And I apologize for that. I wanted to make sure, yeah, Cheryl took care of it. So that's in real dollars. Now, we understand that real dollars doesn't tell the whole story, because obviously when you're looking at the expenditures are going to be increased. And on the first two of these graphs past the mill levy comparison, you'll see here revenue versus expenses. This was 2013's numbers, what they were anticipated to be. And if you look at 2014, you'll see that they are significantly higher. The revenues are higher, but the expenses are significantly higher than they were anticipated to be from the 2013 budget cycle. So, and I mean, in 2015, the projection from 2013 was that we'd be spending $11,398,500. Now that number has become $12,866,800.
Which page are you looking?
I'm looking at the first and second, the 2013 adopted budget and the 2014 proposed budget. So I'm looking at a comparison between those two numbers for the 2015 fiscal year. Okay? So if you look at this, and I tried to equalize it as best I possibly could here, on the 2013 projection, we were supposed to be spending in expenditures $11,398,500. Okay? And that's right out of...
And now are we back to page 2?
We're to page 2 right now. Okay, you're on page 2. You're right there.
I thought I was on,
That's
I was on page 3,
Okay.
I guess.
All right.
I see numbers.
If you look at page 3, okay, for that same year, it's now blown up to $12,866,800. So in the intervening year of budget preparation between last year and this year, we have increased expenditures by over $1.5 million. Now, I am still looking to get some information, and I'll get it, I think, pretty soon, as to what this entails. But, you know, I don't think we have a revenue problem. In fact, I think our revenues are better than we originally expected. We don't have a revenue problem. We have an expense problem. And my question is, what has changed in the last 12 months that have taken our expenditures for 2015, our projections, from $11,398 to $12,866?
Okay. And at this point, unless somebody else has questions about what Steve's presenting here, I've gotten more than...
I know.
I'm not going to bog down the process. Laura, you've had a chance to look at the figures here? Laura?
Yes, I'm looking for the page.
Okay.
So all of...
Can you address this stuff that
I can.
Councilman Shute has sent us? And anybody, if we move to the budget book, if we could reference a page number and section if and when we have questions.
Mm-hmm.
So, Laura?
Yes, sir.
That would include you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, as we discussed on June 2nd, July 7th, and July 21st, there's two ways to look at what's the increase in the spend down. In the budget presentations, the initiatives alone for the general fund were $1.11 million. But I can also address you to Roman numeral 10 in your budget book, where it talked about key financial highlights.
Is that in budget background?
In budget background.
Yep.
Okay.
And I can also point you to Roman numeral 14 that very specifically discusses the expenditures of it says right here, total general fund, so Roman numeral 14 of the budget background, very first paragraph. Total general fund expenditures increased $1.2 million for the 2015 budget when compared to the fiscal year 2014 revised budget, as the general fund includes 63% of the city's human assets, dedicated salary adjustment pool that you all asked for, and the state mandated increases to CAPERS and KPF are shown as a .72 million increase to personal services. Additionally, as stated earlier, 3 staff positions were included for 2015. You also have operating expenditures that were increased by $109,800, but were partially offset by $74,900 reduction in capital outlay, and that's because your resources were realigned to support your strategic goals. Part of the increase stems from budgeting for marketing and rebranding, parks maintenance, building study, the land development code update. They're all funded from the general fund. Additionally, fire services contract increased $58,300. Internal services increased $146,600. Again, because the general fund carries the most significant amounts of human assets and activity, it is impacted the most by any increases to internal service funds. Finally, debt service increased $300,000. This is budgeted to potentially cover debt in the event of a park sales tax shortfall. In previous years, the debt service fund was able to cover this shortfall due to significant recovery of delinquent special assessments, which cannot be easily forecast. It's possible the same scenario could occur in 2015. So that's the difference. You can look at it as whether it's initiatives, or you can look at it as a combination of all these ins and outs and ups and downs. Anything you do to the internal service funds having to do with IT, most of it has the most impact on the general fund services. I will caution, as discussed, it will remind you that your financial advisor, Kimmel, from Ellers, reviewed the city's general fund, and he found nothing that he said. He said it was conservatively appropriate. And I will also caution you heartily that it's about bond and interest. It's not about the general fund. The bond and interest, the reason for those mill increases in the past were because of delinquent special assessments and other delinquent taxes during the economic downturn. That's why it was increased. I would love to tell you that that's been fully resolved. It has not. As a matter of fact, the Russell family themselves are almost 2 mills. And you can't do anything about that until it's at least 3 years delinquent. The county will not collect that. They won't even start the statutory process. It takes 5 years minimum, and I can tell you from discussions with them, they are not timely collecting, so it's more than 5 years. If you, sensitivity on the bond and interest fund, if you do not collect, now I remember when we talked for Mr. Kimmel's presentation, I said, you have to assume we're going to collect, because that's their job. But if they don't, or if it goes on the auction block and you do not get all that you are due, your bond and interest fund will go negative by 2018.
And so you're looking at out transfers from the general fund to cover the...
I am looking to have a cushion of appropriate magnitude in the general fund, and the general fund is currently carrying $300,000 in debt service for park sales tax shortfall in 2015 and $400,000 in 2016. The revenue stream ends in 2015. Your debt service does not end until 2016. I'm already moving heaven and earth and all of the legally available funds to cover those funds. You will cover, we've been lucky so far. We haven't had to cover what was previously estimated in the general fund. I do not think you will cover, that you will get out of it this next 2 years. You're going to pay part of it. And if the bond and interest fund is already in danger, sensitivity analysis. As I stated in this analysis, your choices are delay your capital improvements, that you haven't even talked about yet, or come up with it stands to reason mathematically, if you reduce an income stream and you do not reduce in the same amount the expenditure stream, your fund balance will go down. Now, how much you want to carry is absolutely a policy decision. General fund, or GFOA recommends no less than 2 months expenditures would be 16.66%, so round it up 17. You can do anything else you want, but I will tell you that I've had many discussions with financial advisor Kimmel, who has said, It is going to be a, quote, to me, you didn't hear it, tricky message